From the most broken weapon mods to the best movement settings, here are 50 Chapter 5 tips that actually work. First up, everything you need to know about weapon mods. Now, what you'll get on weapons is completely RNG. Grey weapons have none already attached, green have 1, blue have 2, purple and gold have 3, and then mythic items have the max mods, which is 4. The weapon mods bench can be found in the vault of these 5 POIs. Adding one mod to any weapon will cost 75 gold. Most vaults already have around 400 gold in them already, so using this you can already afford to mod out one weapon as much as you'd like. You can also just place cones in the vaults to harvest the gold much quicker. When using assault rifles, scope for the most part will be preference. You'll most likely not want to use the 4x scope, and for my testing, the Holo 13 usually seems to feel the best, but I think this one's going to be personal preference. Drum mag will allow you to spray for longer, and the combination of laser and muzzle brake will allow you to have almost perfect hipfire accuracy on your striker AR, so definitely use these two combined. For your shotguns, you can't put long range scopes or increase the mag size on them, but the most important mod is angled foregrip. This allows you to fire much faster after editing if you aim down sights. I also quite like a scope adjustment on the hammer pump. Since the spread is quite tight and you can ADS fast with the angled foregrip mod, it feels relatively easy to hit max headshot damage with this. Now, snipers may be my favorite weapon to mod. If you have the same modifications as they just did on the shotgun, the Holo 13 scope and the angled foregrip, but you also add a suppressor to reduce muzzle flash and dampen the audio, then you get an insane weapon. Because the projectile speed of this weapon is much faster than snipers in previous seasons, you can almost use it like a mid-range DMR, but every headshot is 300 damage and almost every body shot is 100. If you need more gold to modify your weapons, you can still use the EMP grenades to throw at any of the mending machines or weapon machines around the map, which for every single EMP will give you somewhere between 50 to 150 gold. Just don't throw them yourself. They also work really well for fighting the NPCs off spawn. The mystic bosses around the map will recharge their shield and spawn another group of NPCs once you break their original shield, so once this cluster spawns, you can just throw these grenades into the group in order to damage them all. But it's definitely better used to get gold. From the 5 mythic bosses around the map, they all drop one mythic weapon which cannot be modified. Peter Griffin is found at Snooty Steps in the south of the map, and he drops Peter Griffin's hammer pump shotgun. Some sentence that is, man. And this has a max damage of 190 and actually has the same mods that we mentioned earlier on the other weapons. Oscar's Frenzy auto shotgun is found at Lavish Lair, and this thing packs a punch. This gun feels like a pre-nerfed primal shotgun, so if you're a controller player, you're going to love fighting with this. Just watch out though, as it does have a ridiculously long reload time, and you have to reload the entire clip at once, which is different from most shotguns. Valeria's Hyper SMG is found at Reckless Railways. Now this has a 12 fire rate, which can consistently get bullets through builds when spraying. Everyone is saying this weapon is insanely broken, and don't get me wrong, it is, but I still think the Striker AR is a much better weapon to use in close range. Speaking of, Nisha's Striker AR is at Fencing Fields, and this has a damage per second of 251, which, for context, the mythic MK7 is 230, and Sky's mythic assault rifle from Chapter 2 Season 2 was 222, so a lot more. The downside of it is that it has a 1.15 times scope, but this thing shreds and is by far the best mythic in my personal opinion. Montague's Enforcer AR is at Grand Glacier, and from what I've seen, this is basically the weakest mythic, but it's still really good. The weapon is much closer to a heavy assault rifle or an AK. It has a higher damage per shot, but it does less damage per second overall. Of course, each of these mythic bosses also drops a medallion. Each medallion you carry will recharge your shield every tick, so 3 shield per tick with 1 or 2, 6 shield per tick with 3, and 8 shield per tick with 4 or 5 medallions. The downside of this is that carrying one medallion will mark your location on the map for everyone to see, and the more medallions you have, the more accurate you will display on the map. Teams looking to drop high elim game should land at one of these mythic drop spots and then use the map to locate other players with the medallion, allowing them to collect as many as possible. Medallions are also used to open the vaults in the bottom of these POIs. Something I totally missed the first few times I was here is that there's weapon cases all the way around the mod benches, and one of these actually has a 100% guaranteed sniper spawn rate. If you have a medallion, you don't really need to carry shields in your inventory, especially mini shields. However, they do not replenish white health, so it is best to carry medkits or floppers. Since you don't need to use any shields, if you and your opponent trade damage and both need to heal, you can just continue to pressure their walls from a safe angle to cancel their heal whilst your shield recharges for free. With that being said, there is a major new healing mechanic. Minis and bandages are the same as the previous seasons, however big pots and medkits now take only 1 second to use. However, they will start to heal you gradually after this. You can even actually walk around in this time as well, which I'm sure you know by now. However, this also includes some mobility items like shockwave grenades, meaning you can actually pop minis and big pots while flying through the air. If you try to cancel by switching to another inventory slot or building or editing, it will stop your healing partially through, but the item will still be consumed, so this is muscle memory you really need to build up. This means that if you're trying to heal off at endgame, the timing is completely different. The medkit starts by healing you 2 damage as a tick, and it slowly raises up to 8. It will cap out once you've healed 100 HP total for a bit, or your HP bar is completely full. So since it'll cancel if your HP bar gets full, it's actually best to wait for the zone to damage you a little bit before you pop your medkit. Now, there may be an advantage to starting it earlier if you're trying to heal off, but I've not calculated the exact time, and I'm sure someone else much smarter than me will. The new healing item this season is Flowberries. Now, these give you 10 shields and grant a zero gravity effect for 5 seconds. You can use these to efficiently sprint and then jump, which will make you cover large distances with each one. Now, the 5-second timer gives you around 2 jumps before it runs out, which is incredibly useful for endgame if you don't have any other rotation items. These carry a max stack size of 6, and a ton of these can be found at fencing fields, so if you want the free rotation in endgame, just land there. But the main mobility item this season is the grapple blade. Now, this has a max range of 36 meters when used horizontally or 38 when used vertically. This will be an insane item to retake height, as if you aim your crosshair right to the edge of the underside of the builds, it will drag you to the perfect height to be able to take out a pump shot onto the height team. Make sure you don't switch your weapon too early, however, as you'll just cancel your animation and not fly as high. Or if you want to cancel animation, just switch to your weapon relatively early and you won't fly as high as the object that you grappled onto. Now, if you just don't make it, you can either mantle up when you land, or you can catch yourself on builds underneath and build up. Now, to counter this, height teams should look to skybase as much as they can, and at a minimum stay more than 38 meters away from the second height team, as this will stop them being able to grapple up to you. If you're skybasing and you're chopped out, or if you're just falling at any point, you can use the grapple blade to cancel any fall damage. However, make sure just to press the alternative fire and not the primary one, as you'll die to fall damage. Choosing a good layer is also incredibly important. You want to play higher layers with the grapple blade in order to fly to the other side of the zone and not get stuck in low ground in enemy builds. Importantly, you also can't change the direction you're going while in the air, so it's important to aim your crosshair at the edges of the item you're grappling to ensure you'll fly past them and not just into them. Sliding after you land from a grapple blade will also give you much more distance out of each charge, just so you get it by now. I've died to fall damage like 10 times this video. So what loadout should you take? The default in my eyes will be the hammer pump, striker assault rifle, grapple blade, and double heals. However, if you have any of the medallions, switch out one of your shield heals for medkits or for floppers. One thing that it took me far too long to notice is that all assault rifles are not hit scan, and instead they fire projectiles like a sniper. This is actually a change I like for competition, as distancing yourself from other players makes it even more difficult to hit shots now. This means that playing the edge of the map and playing deadside is much stronger this season than it ever has been. Another item you may consider taking is the ballistic shield. If you sprint, you're almost entirely covered from the front angle, which is incredibly powerful if you're at the backside of the zone and have players holding you. Then you can box up once your run energy is out and just repeat. Running into structures also causes 150 structure damage, so if someone's in wood, you can basically just run straight into their box. If they're in brick or metal, you'll have to weaken it first, however. It also deals 15 player damage, so you can get cool clips like Nick A30 did here by running straight into a player and winning the game. The train that rotates around the map has 4 100% chest spawns on the wall and 1 hackable chest. This chest gives you almost an entire loadout with 200 metal, however it does take 50 seconds to open. The hills on the Chapter 5 map are absolutely brutal. They are some of the tallest, steepest hills that we've ever had. If a zone is pulling towards one of these, which is quite likely given the majority of the east map is covered by these hills, you have to rotate very early to ensure you don't get stuck at the bottom when every other player is already up at the top. Even better, if you are at the top, nearly all of these hills have stationary launch pads on top of them. You can use these to quickly go from pad to pad along the outside of the map. Given the assault rifles are not hit scan, it should be easier to fly through the sky this season than other seasons. That doesn't mean you won't die though. Forecast towers are back. No tips here, just claim them. Being able to see every zone is unbelievably broken. Player-built structures now have this ugly little lip on them, which allows you to mantle off of them. Now, you can basically do this as high as you like, which is another reason why skybasing in endgame is so strong, because you don't want to be connected by a ton of walls. If you're falling to your death, you can actually just hold your jump button while falling towards the wall and negate your fall damage with it. However, this isn't that practical, because if you do this from too high, you will still just die. One of the best ways to use this mechanic is to retake height over a player, where you place 2 walls at the top of your ramp and then double mantle on top of it. After mantling, if you turn 90 degrees to one side and stop pressing any movement buttons, you'll actually stay on top of the wall without having to build. Now, if you combine these two together, and by sprinting, jumping, and looking directly upwards while holding jump, you can place 2 walls in front of you and instantly mantle them. Then ensure you turn your 90 degrees to land on top. From here, place a floor or ramp to continue building, or rather than building, you can just hop over the wall and shoot the other player. Sometimes if the lip doesn't place in the middle, you will fail this, however. Fortnite have changed the movement settings and they feel awful. Here's the best settings changes to make movement feel as good as possible. Firstly, go to your binds and unbind both force walk binds. At the start of the season, this was the same as my sprint key for whatever reason, meaning I couldn't sprint at all and it forced me to walk at all times. The biggest change they've made is to single key strafing, aka the kind of movement you do when you're not pressing forward and you're only pressing left or right. The movement in Save the World and in Creative are currently different than in Battle Royale, despite the animations being applied to all, so be warned that this will feel different. In order to get the maximum sideways movement, you need to go to the key movement section and turn your strafe angle to 71 or lower, but I would say 71. Any higher and you'll walk slowly sideways. Your forward diagonal angle, which is what happens when you press both forward and a sideways button, also has to be less than 71, and it's best to keep it less than your single strafe angle. I personally use 60 and that feels good for me. Unfortunately, this still does feel kind of clunky, but these are the best settings that I've found. If you play controller, sorry, there's no settings you can change. Crouching now feels horribly slow and almost pointless. However, I will say that sprinting mechanics feel much more fluid as you can change your direction from side to side much easier. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more Chapter 5 content. Peace.